From Isolation Studios, it's Richard Crouse.
Welcome everybody to In Isolation With, the talk show where we make a connection without actually making contact. I'm Richard Crouse, and I hope you're staying healthy, and I hope you're staying happy. My guest today joins me via Zoom from his home in Los Angeles. Rod Lurie is a West Point graduate who became a film critic and was once banned from screenings for referring to Danny DeVito on air as, quote, a testicle with arms. He's a journalist and author, and since 1999, a filmmaker. In this interview, we talk about West Point, why he stood at attention at a screening of Poltergeist, and of course, his latest film, The Outpost. It's an intense recreation of the Battle of Kamdesh, a bloody 2009 confrontation that saw 400 Taliban fighters attack Combat Outpost Keating in Afghanistan, a station manned by 53 American soldiers just days before it was to be shut down. Critics are raving about the film. IndieWire said that Rod shot, quote, much of the 45-minute-long ambush in hectic, agile long takes that allows him to capture the Battle of Kamdesh for all its terror and with a clarity that allows us to feel that terror in our bones. The film is also being praised by veterans, including those who fought in the battle, for its realistic depiction of warfare and the life of a soldier. The Outpost is available now on VOD wherever you legally rent or buy movies. Now, let's get to know Rod Lurie. Let's start with just one pandemic question, and that is,
okay.
we can't go to the movies right now.
Right.
We haven't been able to go for months in most places. Movie theaters are opening up slowly in various places, but it's going to be a little while yet. I'm asking people, if you have some kind of memory, like one memorable night at the movies that pops into your head when you think about going to the movies, it's the memory you have.
Yeah, I have many memories of going to the movies. I think that my most memorable was in 1982. I was a cadet at West Point. I had leave for the weekend, and I went to New York City, and I went to see two movies. And one was The Road Warrior, the George Miller film.
Wow.
And oh my God, I was so absolutely excited by that movie. I thought it was so thrilling, and I left on such a high. And you know, I always knew I wanted to be a filmmaker, and I said to myself, that's the kind of movie that I want to make. I want to have that sort of effect on an audience. And I left that theater, and I went to see another movie, and that movie was E.T. And I remember at the end of that movie, I was in tears like a baby. I'm this tough military guy. I'm crying because, you know, E.T. went home, and the heart is beating, and
yeah.
you know, they say, I'll be right here, and I'm just, and I leave that movie and I say, oh my God, this is the kind of movie I want to make. And so I was really excited. And then and then I went to a third movie, and this was actually kind of funny. That was Poltergeist. and Poltergeist, I now recall, begins with the American flag and the national anthem on a TV, I think that's how it begins. And I remember that because at West Point, when you go to the movies, they begin with a video of the national anthem, and we as cadets are all supposed to stand. Mm-hmm. And I just intuitively just stood. I'm the only person in the theater that stands because the national anthem has come on. So anyway, those are my experiences.
That is a great day at the movies.
Yeah, it was
right
pretty
there
cool.
From morning till night. And E.T. still holds up. I just saw it recently with an orchestra playing the score along with the movie. And I thought, I am probably too old for this. I'm too cynical. I'm too jaded. And, you know, it looks like a little rubber puppet, but still, man, by the end of that movie, everyone's in tears.
Well, it's a masterpiece. It's my daughter's favorite film, so I've got a soft spot for it.
What made you attend West Point?
I didn't attend West Point because of some patriotism or something like that. I thought many things. One is I thought it was probably the best school in the world in terms of a fully rounded education, and by that I don't just mean, you know, the education level that you will get academically. And in fact, you know, it has like the fourth or third most Rhodes Scholars. You know, it's a very high level of education there. You didn't have to pay to go there. That was another thing. My parents wouldn't have to spend a dime. In fact, you get paid to go there. And finally, I thought, well, no, this is the penultimate reason. I thought that it would be a very interesting place to have gone 30, 40, 50 years down the line. People say, where did you go to school? You go to West Point. Well, that's a conversation.
Right.
If, I'd been accepted to places like Northwestern and Duke and Georgetown, places like that, but Yale. But I thought this would be the most interesting place, say, that you came from. But also, I wanted to be a filmmaker. And I knew that I would eventually become a filmmaker. And my theory was you don't go to film school, you go and you study what you want to make movies about. And I had always been interested in leadership and principle were the two things that most interested me. And there's no better school for that than West Point.
Well, I was going to ask you, between West Point and your experience in the military, how that prepares you for being on a film set. And I know this sounds like a bit of a stretch, but there's a hierarchy in both situations. Yeah. There is a sense of urgency. There's a lot of waiting around. There are some things.
Right. So you've already answered the question. You've more or less answered the question. How does West Point prepare you? West Point really prepares you in the sense that it teaches you that leadership isn't monolithic, that you have to understand that every individual is different and that you have to lead differently different people as a general rule. And that leadership is about inspiring people to be their best and not convincing them that you're the best. That is really very important on a film set as well. But more importantly, for myself and for all the military guys that were on the set, and there were a lot of military guys on the set, there was no problem that we would confront where we couldn't say we've been in a tougher scrape than this, especially the guys that had actually been in combat. So it's a very calm set when you have it run by military people. It's like, we're going to solve things as they come, and everything has a solution.
And could you have made this film had you not gone to West Point and had you not done time 4 years in the military?
I could have made it, but it wouldn't have been the same film. And you wouldn't have had the same love and the same respect for the people that you're portraying in the film. And I wouldn't be able to bring some of the authenticity that exists in the film. Even not just from what I know about the military, but in accepting the wisdom of the people that were advising me on the film. Many other filmmakers would at some point start rolling their eyes as to the insistence on getting things right from the military advisors that I had, people like Jericho Denman and Ray Mendoza and Hank Hughes and Daniel Rodriguez and people like that. And to me, I took all that very seriously. I feel very indebted to the Army.
So the battle that this film is based on is part of military folklore.
It sure is, yeah.
Let's set the stage here and let people know what sets this battle apart from the dozens and hundreds before it and the dozens and hundreds after.
Well, it's a battle that really should never have taken place, in the sense that the battle only occurs as a piece of opportunity for the enemy. We put an outpost at the base of mountains. There were reasons for that, but in my opinion, the reasons were not good enough to put us into such a vulnerable position. Even the layman watching the movie for the first time, when Scott Eastwood comes out in the morning and looks up at these mountains that surround him, he's looking up at them and he's going, "Shit, man, we're doomed." And the big one is going to come at some point, and the big one does come. And the big one comes on October 3rd, 2009, where we are outnumbered, I think, 8 or 9 to 1, 53 men. And these Taliban descend upon them with much greater weaponry and with much greater force and with a tremendous zeal. And we survived it. And we lost 8 men. which is horrible, awful. But the battle was won, and it was won because of the leadership of the young men that were on that post, and from their brotherhood and their desire to protect one another. And in the end, the movie, I think what I'm finding is that people find the ending very emotional for two reasons. One is their connection to the men who fell, but also a sense of inspiration at what human beings are capable of when the odds are stacked against them like this.
Well, the character that Caleb Landry Jones plays, in an absolutely tremendous performance,
Yes,
is someone that I found really interesting, because he was a person who understood that fear is very much a part of what you're up against. And so often in war films and war dramas, we're not allowed to see the fear. It's seen as
yes.
weakness, or it's seen as something that we shouldn't be seeing. And I love that that was embraced in
Well,
this film.
weakness is the very definition of bravery is to do something in the face of fear. If you don't have any fear, then you're just fearless, and so what?
Right.
You know, then that doesn't say anything about your character other than maybe you're a moron. You know, he's and by the way, you are right about the Caleb Landry Jones performance. My God, this guy it's one of, in my opinion, one of the best combat performances in the history of the screen art. It's really something to be believed. I really hope that people remember him at the end of the year.
Did you know it when it was happening? When you were watching?
Yes, I did. I mean, I'm watching it, and I'm watching the effort that he's putting into the performance. It's interesting that you asked that question. Not a lot of journalists think to ask that, because the interesting answer is there's usually one or two performances that are really good in a movie that you think are shit when you're shooting it, and then you understand the nuance of the actors and the sort of the intelligence that they bring to it. And that's usually from roles that are well rehearsed. You know, Caleb really rehearsed a lot. His physical actions and what he needed to do for technical reasons. We needed to get this right. But he's a furnace. You know, when you open the door of that furnace, the fire just comes out, and you're not sure what you're going to get from take to take. He's a very, very innovative actor. By the way, he's exactly in real life the opposite of Ty Carter, the Medal of Honor recipient that he plays. He's a scrawny guy. He's seems to begin every day with a joint and every hour on the hour sort of guy. And in fact, when he went to meet the real Ty Carter, Ty calls me and he says, Rod, this guy, he's going to go to the gym, right? He was really concerned about that. But he did go to the gym, and he did train, and he got his act together. And it's a spellbinding performance. By the way, I love literally everybody's performance in this film. Scott Eastwood never, ever, ever been better than this. I think he's a better actor at his age than his dad was at his age.
Was there ever a thought, and I know this is based on real people, but giving him a nickname rather than calling him Clint, which is his character's name?
Okay, hold on. Never used once in the whole film. Never used once.
Is it not? I guess I got that from my reading.
No. Could you imagine what a distraction that would be if I'm calling him? He looks just like his dad. So if I'm calling him Clint the whole movie, that's going to be really, really weird. In fact, it's a very, very important point that I make, that nobody's first name is uttered in the entire film until the very end of the movie, where I tell you what their first names were. It was absolutely intentional. And in fact, that's the way it goes in the military. You almost never use your first name in the military. Yeah, there were people that were like best friends, and they never knew one another's first name. And literally, Carter, Ty Carter, nobody on that base knew what his first name was.
Is that right? Wow.
Yep.
It's interesting. Those details, I think, are the thing that make this feel like such a rich tapestry. We get to meet the characters at the beginning of this for the first 40 minutes or so. It's punctuated by unexpected events that happen. I don't want to give anything away, but there are things that do happen. But really, we're just getting to know them. We're getting to know them. We're getting to know about their lives. And more importantly, we're getting to care about them. And so when all hell breaks loose in that last hour, not only is the battle scene frenetic and you think there's no way, they're in the middle of a pit, they can't get out, but you care about them. They are not just people running around in uniform.
Well, that's because we cared. And we got to know the families of the fallen. We got to know these soldiers really well. And the actors themselves who really got to know the people that they were portraying, there's no way that they were going to allow their characters to get lost in the shuffle. And at some point, each one of them came to me and asked for an adjustment to this line, or even the way that they were shot, so that or filmed, I should say, that they would really be clear. Now, I want to say something that's really important right now, is that people watching this and they're going to go see The Outpost are going to see it on VOD. They're going to download it. Pretty please, with all sorts of sugar on top, do not watch this phone on your iPhone. Do not watch this phone even on your computer. Find the best system you have and watch it that way. Why? Because when you go to these lesser forms, when you see it on this, right, everything is dark and you can't make out the characters. Characters are wearing helmets, or heads are shaved. We went through an effort to make them all sort of really recognizable, but it would help if you could see them. So I'm asking everybody, we weren't really, this was intended for the big screen. The pandemic killed that. So we're asking everybody, please watch this in the best way that you can.
One last question before I have to let you go.
Yes.
Your father was a political cartoonist. Your family argued politics around the dining room table, from what I understand. You have a dog named POTUS, from what I hear.
Know that?
I
That's
know
some voodoo
things.
stuff, man. Yeah, I have a fantastic dog named POTUS, and it's a girl.
And so with all of that, you would think that walking into The Outpost, that we would be watching a film that was politicized in some way. And your other films have, or some of your other films have been politicized.
Yes.
This one isn't. The only suggestion that I would make is that it is tacitly critical of the army, in the sense that these men were put in an unwinnable situation at the bottom of 3 mountains, where they could easily be surrounded and picked off, and they weren't taken out when they should have been taken out.
Well, I will disagree with you vehemently. It's not acid. The army completely fucked this up. Can I say that on your thing?
Sure can.
They messed it up. And in fact, that is explained at the end of the film. This was a catastrophic mistake. But these guys, they overcame the mistake of the superiors who made this decision. There was a reason to put them there. Right? I'm not saying it wasn't a reason. As I said before, though, it wasn't good enough. I am very proud that when we tested this film, it was very clear at 100% degree of testing that nobody saw this as remotely political. It is not a political film. It's just not. They stayed there over 2 administrations, the Bush administration and the Obama administration. So there's no fault on, Bush was not in the Oval Office and said, you know what, let's put Outpost below these mountains. His commanders made that decision, and then they were called out for it. And this will never happen again, not in the United States Army, or I certainly hope not.
You were a film critic.
Yeah.
Do you still care what film critics say about your movies?
Yeah, especially the ones I respect.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, of course I care. And any person who says that they don't care is not telling you the truth. And the film has been extremely well reviewed, and we're really, really grateful for that. And and of the negative criticism, and even in the positive reviews, have been, a couple of comments. So sometimes you rub your chin, you go, that sort of makes sense. I'll remember that for the next time. So, yeah, I care, but I also don't lose sleep over it.
Well, Rod, pleasure to speak to you. Thank you so much for this.
It's really an honor. Thank you very much, my friend.
That was Rod Lurie. Find The Outpost on VOD wherever you legally rent or download movies. My thanks to Rod for spending some time with us today, but as always, most of all, my biggest thanks goes to you for watching. I'm Richard Crouse. Stay safe, stay happy, and we'll talk again soon.